So if you're thinking about becoming a video game YouTuber, watch this. So becoming a video game YouTuber is a little bit easier than it looks. Now, clearly, like if you take a look at my channel, I'm the type of person, I really love games, you know. So, and also, you know, I've always been telling myself that I actually wanted to become, you know, like a YouTuber. But the thing is, I kind of like always put it off. Like I always told myself, all right, there, you know, like I want to become a YouTuber, and you know, eventually, you know, I'll do it. But it took me a long period of time to be able to like build myself up to be able to like, you know, come on camera and actually, you know, because as you guys can tell, like I'm actually like a really social person. Like, you know, I'm really good with like, you know, being able to like, you know, exchange, I guess you could say like, you know, whole conversations and everything like that. And see, that's the one thing you have to be good with, social skills. Like, you know, especially when you're getting on YouTube for the first time, you know, now I know like you could be a little, you know, I know certain people are kind of like camera shy because in a way, like, you know, being on YouTube is essentially public speaking, you know, and that's one of the, you know, like I said, that's one of the biggest fears, like, you know, speaking in public, you know. Now, so it kind of just takes a lot of like you being able to like, you know, like just every day in your daily life, what you could do is, you know, you could just practice by like, you know, just speaking to, you know, different people. Like when you're, you know, let's say like you're at work or something, like, you know, you could speak with, you know, co-workers and stuff like that. Even, you know, just kind of like to build up like your social skills, you know, because even talk to people that you're not necessarily used to talking to, like, you know, people that you don't really care to talk to, you know, like because people don't understand that communication is like a skill that you have to, you know, you have to build. Now, don't get me wrong, like some people like they're born with it, and then other people like, you know, you have to build up that confidence to be able to, you know, really be able to talk, like, you know, because to be honest, like some people just have the gift of speech and some people just don't. Now, if you have like an extensive video game library, like, you know, kind of like me, you know, if you're somebody who really loves video games, you know, and you also want to become a YouTuber, you probably shouldn't let, you know, I guess you could say like your quote unquote lack of speech like deter you from doing such, you know, or doing such, I guess you could say. So my advice would be to you know, and I don't necessarily want to say be yourself, because like I said, like that's typical advice, like everybody, you know, everybody says that, you know, but where I would start at, you know, is you would need to, you know, like I said, like get more social, you know, especially being that you know, especially if you're a person that kind of like, you play video games, you go online and stuff like that, you know, you could put your mic on and you could just talk to the other people online. Now, granted, you know, people are kind of disrespectful online, don't get me wrong, like they definitely are, you know, but, you know, every now and then you'll come across some good, you know, some good-hearted people online that you could actually, you know, hold a conversation with, you know, start a community up with, you know, you could get, you know, I guess social media, you know, whether you want to do an Instagram, Facebook, or, you know, and like I said, the people that you meet through, you know, playing online, you know, like no matter what game you play, you know, as long as it's an online game where, you know, there's actually a community, you know, you could go on, you know, I guess you could say like different platforms or social media platforms like, you know, Twitter, or I guess they call it X now. You know, there's definitely people out there that, you know, you'll be able to kind of like, you know, communicate with, you know, to kind of get you to that point where, like, you know, at least get you up into a point where you feel comfortable enough to like actually get on camera to, you know, be able to do YouTube, because like I said, as I said before, it's an actual skill, you know. And yeah, I always say, don't let like fear get in the way of like you actually doing something that you actually want to do. You know, this is one of those things where, and like I said, I'm a video gaming channel, but like, you know, this kind of comes across as like one of those, you know, like one of them channels where like, you know, they kind of give like YouTube advice. Now clearly, like as you see, I have a small channel myself, you know, but I've always told myself that, like I said, I wanted to do YouTube, and now I'm finally doing it in 2026, you know, and I want to stick by it, you know. So yeah, I definitely feel like, you know, you definitely, like, moral of the story of like this video is just try not to like let anything like deter you, you know. But that's kind of like my word of advice for today. I definitely thank you for watching, you know, and you know, if you have any questions, you know, you just put it in the comment section. All right.